Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Simplifying Network Automation with NetGroup. I'm your host. Today we have Sean Kavanaugh as a guest. Sean, welcome back. How you been? I know it's been a rough year for you too. We're not gonna get into that, but hopefully it's gonna get better.
I'm sure it'll be better now that I'm here on the most amazing show with the best friend I could ask for sure. We've not got to hang out.
I'm trying. I'm trying to,
Yeah.
spruce up and make a better day for you. So, besides all of the things, right? I know you've been traveling a bit. There's a lot of stuff coming up from Ansible. You guys had Ansiblefest. I was sorry to miss it. I would have
That was kind of
loved
some
to be
yes.
there, the Boston.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one. But how was that actually?
So obviously it's still odd post-COVID events, as you do a lot of events too in tech
Yeah.
market. But it's grown a lot from last year, and it was really cool. Like one thing we've done in the last, I think it was last year was the first time, is to combine Fest and Summit into one event, which a lot of people are excited for and a lot of people are upset about. Personally, while I do miss some of the smaller Ansible fests, it's kind of nice to have one combined event because it's a lot of work for marketing people. As I'm sure at Cisco, you guys are
I
dying
know.
to
Yeah, that
survive, right?
workshop I did a couple of years ago, that was a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I think it went really well. We still get a separate keynote, and I had the opportunity to do a keynote. You can actually find that on the Red Hat YouTube channel, and we had a bunch, including we had HashiCorp on stage. That was a cool announcement. Is IBM is acquiring HashiCorp, and we actually got to have HashiCorp on stage, and we have joint customers. And I think that helps that story a lot because there's a lot of people that are like, do I choose Hashi or do I choose Red Hat? And now it simplifies that. And like, that's a really cool story we've been saying, like, where do you use and when do you use Terraform versus Ansible? Maybe that's something we could do sometime. And then obviously a lot about AI. So we now have a business unit for Red Hat Artificial Intelligence. And then they have 3 really cool products. And they announced Inference Server, a Red Hat Inference Server at Red Hat Summit. And then we have RHEL AI and then OpenShift AI. And then Ansible, we have announced at Summit, I'll talk about a little bit, like Intelligent Assistant. So that's pretty cool. So it was a really cool event. I got pretty good feedback. What we tried to do, which I think has resonated really well with customers, is we let other customers who've done it successfully because, well, like I love to present and there's other product managers and marketing people at Red Hat. Like it's better if customers tell customers. So we put we put over half of our on-air time was customers talking. Just like we did the previous fest. So that was really nice. And we had a bunch of customer sessions. So that was, I think it went over really well. Always looking to grow the event. But I was plenty busy. It was fun.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, you had the keynote pretty much. Was it you and Daphne or
Yeah,
was
me and Daphne we did 3 demos on stage. We were showing off automation dashboard. And then kind of future capabilities with some of it is like the intelligent assistant, and then we're moving into MCP based automation, which is becoming all the rage in AI. So MCP, for anyone that's not heard about it, stands for Model Context Protocol, although I'm convinced that is a cover because they just wanted to call it, what is it, Master Control Program from Tron. I think they were just trying to fit MCP there. So you'll see all these YouTube videos, but I'm like, how are they missing that this is a joke? Like it's like someone at Anthropic was just like, this is really funny. And they got it to
I
stick.
didn't even think about it.
Yeah, it's from Tron. It has to be from Tron. There's no way. But it's the ability for it's a way for AI to understand an API and then interact with the tool that's correct for the use case. So what we'll start doing, hopefully later this year, depending on what we can hit timeline, is we already have it working. It's figuring out the supportability of this because there's so many moving pieces. Because once we release something GA, it has to be like 3 years of. So we're being very careful. But what we want it to do is starting off as like MCP could have the ability to talk to AAP itself. So right now we have an intelligent assistant, but that intelligent assistant could actually act. You could be like, build me a job template, build me a playbook that does this, and it configures everything for you. So the future is bright. And like, even for brownfield, to be like, hey, what network device has failed the most over the last 2 weeks? And then you could get that information really quickly. Again, it's using AI as a tool, a assistant, rather than, it's not like replacing what a human could do. It's just doing it quicker and faster. And you still need an architect to figure that out, so you can concentrate on cooler work. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff at Summit and Fest, and cool stuff happening. Maybe I can come back in November, December, January. Hopefully some
with
more.
MCP.
Yeah, MCP.
Yeah, yeah, and I love to also cover more the Hashi Terraform story,
Yeah.
because so it went through the acquisition, right? Because I mean, I know it was pending for a while. IBM wanted to buy Hashi, it had been announced a while back, and then it was like reviewing that. So it finally went through. It's all done now. Hashi and
Yeah, now we can talk to them
Ansible,
finally,
it's
because
all,
we were building a lot of integrations with them,
yeah.
and then we couldn't even talk to them for a little bit because of legal. And then now that the acquisition's gone through, it's really cool. There are actually like a lot of Red Hatters that went to Hashi at some point in the past. So I've actually been talking to former guys I used to work with, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of stuff there, and we can save that for another conversation, because I could bring some more material. But Terraform doesn't really overlap with Ansible. There's a couple of use cases here and there. Like, Terraform's much more geared towards a declarative state file to represent infrastructure, especially on public cloud. So there are like corner cases where people use it for certain infrastructure on premises, but that's not really the 90% use cases. And then the other one is, we had modules to call Terraform, and it was quite common even within Red Hat for us to do that, which is surprising to a lot of people. So a lot of previous acquisition was just education to customers on when and where to use Terraform and when and where to use Ansible. And then another one is we already had integrations with Vault. So we have a lot of customers using Hashi Vault. That is one of their big flagship products. And I think that integration will only get better with the acquisition. So you will see a lot better just integrations within the web user interface to allow Vault to work the way it's intended to be, which is very much like I need escalation and privileges just as I need it. I don't need root access to every device within my infrastructure. So I think that will evolve a lot to have more of like a AWS or Azure look and feel to how I do Vault or credential management within my infrastructure. So that's stuff that's only getting better. And there's some guys on my team I could hook you up with. They might be cool to mix it up too, where they can talk about all the cool.
Yeah, I'd love to have a session about that, especially so Terraform compared to Ansible, and also like Vault, Ansible, and Terraform, bringing like all three together. That'd be a really good one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
the future is bright. But I had some stuff today on AIOps, although we might rename it. We've been talking to analysts, and they're like, AIOps is such an overloaded term, this and that, and like, who knows? In a couple of weeks, it'll probably change. But just think about Ansible and artificial intelligence and how they interact. And then there's some stuff that we use artificial intelligence, and there's some stuff that we integrate with AI solutions in the marketplace. So I don't know. I could share some stuff. Is that cool?
Yeah. Let's. You have some slides.
Oh, it's like it shows just LinkedIn messages while we're live. I didn't know it did that, the tool.
Yeah, and user automation consumers. Dexter, thanks for joining, Dexter. Dexter.
Yeah, that's a really I know Dexter. What's up, man? But yeah, I get it. That's a good point. Is like a lot of people want a single tool. That's a really good comment. And it's not wrong, because a lot of companies, just like anything, are like ebbs and flows. And they want to standardize skill sets sometimes, or they're just trying to control costs. So they're like, I can't pay for this and this and this and this. And I think the education is okay, because sometimes it's like, well, these tools like overlap here, but this is their actual true benefit. Here's the ROI in each tool, and this is a reasonable cost. But yeah, I think that's fair. There's just so many things to know as an IT infrastructure guy that it's overwhelming. Anyways, let me share the one slide. I'm not going to do a ton of slides, both because I hate it and Adrian will grill me if I like slides. The first one I started up with, I'm still like prototyping this slide. Can you see Ansible and artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just a prototype slide. So hopefully my PMMs won't kill me if Michelle's watching or watches later. But there's kind of like this term Lightspeed at Red Hat. When we talk about this, Lightspeed just means there's an AI capability or feature built within the product. And this may evolve, but different business units at Red Hat will use that Lightspeed terminology in slightly different ways. And that's okay. But that means you're buying a product from Red Hat and it has AI stuff built into it. So 2 years ago, maybe longer, but we announced Coding Assistant. This is AI capability built into VS Code IDE that helps you explain Ansible and generate content, both playbooks, roles, tasks, whatever it happens to be. And it's built into VS Code. This requires IBM Watson X, either as a hosted service or a on-premise installation. So it can do both. Now we announced the new thing. It's Ansible Lightspeed Intelligent Assistant, which is separate. That's why I was trying to make this diagram, and maybe I'll redraw it a couple different ways. Intelligent Assistant is a chat interface. It's a platform assistant. So instead of building playbooks, this is built into the actual web UI of the product. This can be run with Red Hat AI, and we have 3 products on Red Hat AI. There's Inference Server, there's RHEL AI, and OpenShift AI. And they go from like the least expensive and more bare bones as Inference Server, and then RHEL AI adds the ability to do training and model, like you can train it on your own data. And then it moves up to OpenShift AI, which adds all that training, but it builds it on top of OpenShift and allows you to scale it, and it gives you all those enterprise features that OpenShift kind of builds on versus RHEL. We can use any of those as the backend, depending on what the customer wants for infrastructure. So this can only be run on premises, which is actually preferred by a lot of our customers for Red Hat. So Intelligent Assistant and Coding Assistant are 2 different things. So that's like the first confusing thing, is a lot of people are like, I don't look at Lightspeed because that requires IBM Watson X, depending on the customer. Some customers love IBM Watson X. In this case, Coding Assistant requires Watson X, Intelligent Assistant doesn't. The next question I get a lot of times is, do these have APIs? Both of them have APIs. The next question I get is, can I make a playbook with Intelligent Assistant? Technically, yes, it's just within the chat interface or API. So you would have to pull that playbook into an IDE or Git or something. But they can both generate playbooks, although Coding Assistant probably has a lot more history of doing that. But it becomes subjective at that point, depending on what model you're using, right? So on the left is Lightspeed, and there may be future capabilities. So you can imagine like there's a Coding Assistant, Intelligent Assistant, maybe there's some other assistant, like a whatever in the future. And you'll probably see other business units like the RHEL business unit or the OpenShift business unit do things like that. On the right side, which I think is more interesting for today, is use cases with AI. So the first one is AI infrastructure is still infrastructure. So if I want to spin up Red Hat AI, I probably want automation to do that. And I could install and configure Red Hat AI on top of Cisco hardware. So if I have a bunch of Cisco UCS infrastructure and I have GPUs, this is a really obtainable use case where I just have playbooks go and build that, and I do configuration management, automation, day 2 operations. And I'm just treating it like other infrastructure. It's just custom playbooks and roles we package into content collections specifically to help package up Red Hat AI solutions on the infrastructure. And then the bottom right here is IT ops or AI ops or whatever we happen to call it in the future. But this is just automating with IT infrastructure. So you already imagine it's already set up. So you have an endpoint. One of the things I want to try out is you guys, Cisco just announced an AI model that's been trained to help troubleshoot IT networks. I want to try this out, running it on some Red Hat software, or figure out what options there are. I haven't played with it yet, but I've signed up for it. And it's like in my queue because I think it's really cool. But in this case, what's really nice is a lot of AI endpoints actually use OpenAI compatible APIs, just because OpenAI and ChatGPT were first to market.
Mhm.
And this is the same for under the hood with our solutions. Is we use VLLM a lot, and it also has an OpenAI compatible API. So we've built modules specifically with Ansible to talk to OpenAI compatible APIs, which means if you have pretty much any AI tool within your infrastructure, like Microsoft Copilot, Claude, Anthropic, whatever, as long as there's an API for us to talk to that's enabled, we can automate things with that AI. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, because I think that's cool. And I'm hoping another time I'll have like a demo with Cisco's AI solutions and putting that into practice, like what that could mean. I don't have that part today, but there's some cool things we could do. But let me flip you.
Okay, so let's see then. Yeah, infrastructure. And is that you said is right collection roles on the AI automation infrastructure piece, the upper right hand corner. Are those publicly available,
Yeah.
Sean? Like those collections?
Well,
They are, right?
they're all our everything Red Hat makes is open source. A lot of the stuff is distributed through Automation Hub. So it just requires a Red Hat login. But Automation Hub is just like a library similar to Galaxy of all the certified
Gotcha.
and validated content. But you can actually make a Red Hat login with a GitHub profile or whatever. That's something even for our like free demos, we started requiring a GitHub or a free login, a GitHub. I think it does Active Directory, like if you have a Microsoft account and stuff, just because it gets rid of spamming and bots and things as lab use. That was kind of crazy. Yeah, the OpenAI API stuff is just really and in fact, if you look at APIs, if anyone's ever messed with APIs, the AI APIs are not that difficult. Like as far as APIs go, it's like usually there's like 6 little knobs and then like the actual query, and then it has a response in JSON. Like it's fairly simplistic API, so it's like why not just copy it at that point? I'm sure there's some other standards, but it's pretty cool. Anyways, there's one other little deck I want to do just for diagrams. I think this will make sense as I go through like a demo. Maybe this one will be good. But in here, let me slide. So this is like 5 slides, and I promise. So EDA is how I think we can plug into these AI workflows the best way. So we talked about EDA last time I was on here. So EDA, for anyone who's not used to it, is just event-driven Ansible. And granted, I'm well aware that many people have done event-driven automation prior to Ansible existing. That's fine. It's nice that the A overlaps. So EDA is EDA. But what we're trying to do here is just like what Playbooks did for automation, which is lower the barrier to entry, help make this easy for anyone to pick up event-driven automation. And we have this concept of rule books versus playbooks. So playbooks run and you can schedule them, but they're kind of push. Rule books allow us to say, if this happens, then do this, right? Just like a lot of us nerds with home automation. And then we obviously have a giant ecosystem of partners, including Cisco, where we have a throat to choke, hand to shake, everything's supported. So it's not just like vibe coding, right? It's fully supported, and there's a SLA to get support on it if you're a customer of Cisco and Red Hat. And then this last one is just comprehensive automation capabilities. This just means like we can plug this in our ecosystem of like RBAC and automation mesh to distribute automation across your infrastructure and all the normal enterprise tools that people know and love. Anyways, I'm gonna show a quick like hello world example. And then I'll kind of do a demo of this to show what this looks like. And then you can imagine, I'm showing RHEL here. So for the Cisco folks, you can imagine RHEL is running on Cisco UCS. This could also be a network device. And Tony, actually, who's on with you next week, has done some cool demos with this. I don't have a network device just on this infrastructure right here, but this could be a network device. This could be a controller. This could be whatever. This is just a hello world example of like what I think could work as AIOps in a customer. So in this case, we'll have a misconfiguration happen. Someone misconfigures, whether automation or manually, into a application on your VM, your virtual machine. This breaks. We can pick up from a message queue. So this could be Kafka, Service Bus, whatever. Both me and Tony use Kafka a lot because it's really easy to show demos with it. As soon as we see that event takes place, a rulebook sees that event and it says, hey, Ansible, I don't have a pre-existing playbook to fix this issue. What do I do? And what we can do is we can send this to an AI endpoint. So we simply, in my demo, I actually have a playbook log into that server and I say, hey, is it actually down? What's going on? Let's attach logs to a message, and then we're going to ask an AI endpoint, what does this error mean?
What to do?
Yeah. Just like I would with ChatGPT, I'd be like, here, cut, paste. What does this mean? I don't want to think about it. Now, the fourth step here is I can take the response from that AI endpoint and I can pipe this directly into my ticketing system. So here I'm showing ServiceNow. In the demo, I'm going to use Mattermost, which is just like a free Slack-like chat interface that my team uses for demos. But this could be whatever your ticketing system is. Do you see a lot of ServiceNow from Cisco, or is it?
Yeah, we do. It's probably the most popular ticketing solution out there these days. Yes.
But again, this could be Zendesk.
Could be anything.
Yeah. What's nice with steps 1, 2, 3, 4 here is this is low risk. This is all read-only automation. So this is something I try to help organizations who are nervous about automation or nervous about AI or nervous about everything, right? Because it's in computer networks and IT infrastructure, we're running the backbone of what keeps businesses afloat. So releasing automation or AI generated automation is scary, right? But what's cool about 1, 2, 3, 4 is this is low risk, where I'm just automating what a human would do anyway, which is logging in, troubleshooting this device, asking AI what's going on, and then updating a ticket with all that information to help lower mean time to resolution. Now, what I'll show in this demo too is going beyond that is Lightspeed also has an API, and I can request a playbook to fix the issue that the other AI told me it. So this is a multi-AI endpoint workflow. And I think you'll see a lot of this in the future, especially as MCP and agent-to-agent stuff comes on. But in this case, like you can do this right now where I have OpenShift AI or RHEL AI running somewhere. I ask it a question. Then I say, hey, I know there's a misconfiguration on this line of this particular configuration file. Can I remove that line with a playbook? I sync that to Git, and then I remediate that issue. So this is, again, a simplified diagram of what's possible within IT infrastructure. But I think there's a lot of smart people, and I recognize some of the names of people asking questions as they go by. Is this can be easily put guardrails on this, right? So we can, like, instead of like auto putting a playbook into production, like we could open a pull request with SCM modules that we have. We could put workflow approvals inside Ansible Automation Platform. We could test this on a development workbench. We could use the Cisco, it's called CML, right? The modeling tools. We could test a solution on CML before we try to touch a production Nexus configuration, right? So there's a lot of cool ways we could do this, but that would look really ugly on a slide, and it's not as cool to demo. But those go more into like a production use case. So we have like a 90-minute workshop where we work with people, and even that diagram gets more complicated. But what's cool is this stuff's possible now, and I'll kind of dive into that. Do you have any questions before I bring up the demo environment?
So yeah, then I'm gonna bring you back, Sean, with MCP once you guys go GA with it, because yes, we've had folks talk about MCP now. Had John Capobianco last week, and we've covered PyTS and MCP, and then Damian Garros from InfraHub covering InfraHub and MCP. So right, and you look online, it's MCP everywhere. But yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys are going to come up with, especially once you have multiple agents. And let's see Lightspeed then. And you can stop at any place, at any point, right? You've shown 6 steps, but like you've said, you could go just 3 steps. Just go ask it, or 4, go create a ticketing service now, or whatever ticketing system you have, or monitoring solution you have, or pass it on to Lightspeed and see the playbook that it creates, then take it the next step, right? Open a pull request in a Git repo somewhere with that playbook. And then step 7, test it in a test environment. Have some, right? So you could do this ad nauseum. But let's see what you have in the demo. I'm curious.
Yeah, let me see. Oops, I'm gonna like make an infinity window. I wanted to show a couple things here. So
Can you zoom in a bit, please,
yeah,
Sean?
good
Just
idea.
a couple of. There you go.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
gonna get big and fat. So what's cool here is this. What's nice about Red Hat AI Solutions is you could run this like on a MacBook or something. Instruct Labs is the upstream project. If anyone's curious, you can actually go to like GitHub instructlab/instructlab, and you can actually run this on a MacBook. I think there's like instructions on. I'm running RHEL AI on AWS on a G6 instance. So this costs like less than $1 an hour. What I'm doing is I'm just checking if anything's hardware accelerated. And what's nice is I first want to show that first use case, which is like, hey, I can just operationalize normal AI things. I could like choose a model. I can put whatever I want in the survey. This doesn't actually do anything. It's like just showing that these are completely configurable. I think I've showed surveys before, but this part is doing something. I'm going to turn on this 7 billion parameter model, and I'll see that it does key and value, right? If anyone's messed with Ansible before, this is pretty simplistic, but it's showing that I can actually interact with Red Hat AI solutions, and I can make simple playbooks that distribute this. So it's actually checking like, hey, this isn't actually operating. I'm going to activate this virtual environment, turn on this G6 instrument, and make sure that this model is serving. And I should see in this window, hardware acceleration is happening, and that GPU is running that particular process. Now, the other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in on this server too. Oops, it's flipped windows. One second. I'll bring it back into my, I'm making myself like, and in here, I'm just going to manually do this for kicks and giggles, is I see that there's a web service running. So I'm going to flip back here. I'm going to drink my own champagne, and I'm going to simulate someone breaking this. However, I'm kind of just cheating with using Ansible. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just simulating a human user who's logging into this, and they're misconfiguring something, and they're breaking a web service. And you can imagine this could be any systemd application across any amount of Linux infrastructure. This could also be, again, a Cisco box where someone's misconfigured it, and maybe your rulebook's looking for a BGP connection that goes down, or OSPF connection that goes down, or an LLDP connection that goes down between two devices. So again, it's not restricted to just Linux or just Windows or just network. It's written in a way that's like super flexible. So we should see in a second that we're going to break this particular box, and we broke it. This would automatically normally fire off a rule. I've turned this off just to slow it down. But we have this concept of rule books. And if we actually look on the left side here, I will see decisions, and I can see rulebook activations running, looking for events. And we can actually see that I don't have this on for this particular one, but we're using it for a bunch of different demos. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go into execution and click templates, and I'm going to kick off a workflow that follows the workflow I just did with the slides. It has this one fail just to show what's cool about Ansible Automation Platform workflows is each of these little nodes is a job template. And these job templates allow you to simplify the playbook. So this playbook could be just 3 to 5 tasks. And if that playbook fails, you can create a new path for it. If it runs successfully, it runs this way. So it allows you to put some of that logic. If this playbook fails or this playbook fails, run this playbook, and so on and so forth. So what it's doing in here is it's already stopped. I put a workflow approval as an example of like, hey, I can pause automation midway to review what it's doing. And I can actually see that it's gone in here, it's logged in that particular device, and it's created a bunch of facts that it can use. Facts are just key value pairs that it's run against it. Then I can go in here and see, hey, what it's done is it's run a bunch of playbooks in here, and it's checking the provided logs in there. Now, it's not super fun to use Ansible playbook output to do my troubleshooting. So in this case, instead of ServiceNow, I've actually logged into Mattermost, which is just the chat app. So this is acting as my ServiceNow just for demo purposes. And it will tell me, hey, there's an error message, specifically invalid directive here. So this is showing me in a much more human readable format. Again, this could be Slack or an email. So it says, hey, this is the model. And this model is actually from last November. I haven't upgraded it because I created a separate thing, but this one just runs and it's inexpensive. It says, here's the prompt. And the prompt says, hey, we have an issue with this Linux server with this service, which is a dynamic. And this is all of the logs that it grabbed dynamically from journal CTL about that particular process. And then it says, hey, instruct lab, again, which is just the upstream name, but this is a Granite model that's running under the hood, is saying, hey, from the provided logs, this particular file is having a failure. This is the issue with the failure, and this is how you troubleshoot it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty happy with that. So what I could do is I could go back in here and say like, hey, I'm happy with this, and I trust the process I've created, and I could say approve, click yes, and I have approval workflow in here. And then I can go back to my jobs, and I can see that it's started trying to request the next part of that workflow, which is request a playbook. So I can go in here and click on the, it's so fast that it's like carriage returning like a typewriter. And it's actually requested that playbook from another API request, this time to Lightspeed. And in here, I can actually see the response. It actually says, I don't know why it named it Ansible Learner. Sometimes it does weird things, but the playbook is actually looking good. Host all, it's removing that invalid directive and then restarting the HTTPD process. So we should see, as long as this workflow actually finished, we can actually click output, go back to the workflow, is it then synced that playbook and then it ran that playbook. So if I go back here, since it's a live demo,
your web server, there you go, is active again. Nice.
So again, this is a very simplistic Hello World demo, right? And I don't think it's realistic to expect anyone who's listening in to necessarily think they're going to release auto-generated playbooks into infrastructure. Nor do I think someone's going to, let me stop sharing there. Nor do I think someone's going to use any other tool to do auto-generated things into production workloads, right? But it's possible, and I think there's normal enterprise ways to do that. Like we could test a playbook that's auto-generated onto my IT infrastructure in a dev place, or review it, or open a pull request. I think there's easy ways to take benefit from it without copying exactly what I did, right? And I think anyone who's listening in, I like recognize like Dexter. Like Dexter's a smart dude. He's gonna know how to do this without me hand walking him. Like he's just like, oh, this makes sense. You're just programmatically using existing AI tools that you already know and use into your normal IT workflows. You're just doing it automated instead of like cut and paste to this chat and cut and paste to this chat. And I think like I can imagine if Cisco's tool in your case is really good at troubleshooting Cisco equipment because it has all of your guys' TAC cases and all kinds of information it's learned on. I could ask it like, hey, we're seeing an anomaly here from Splunk that Cisco's identified. Can we ask this AI endpoint what it thinks? And then we could use Ansible to orchestrate like a solution or take that server offline. Maybe it's a hardware failure, right? So we just want to like remove routes from it or something. But at the very least, I spent a lot of time when I was like a support engineer, just like redrawing everyone's network. Like literally, I spent like show tech support, right? That's what I did for like hours, and then like literally with pen and paper, I'd be drawing stuff out, and I'd be like, because I would get the weirdest tickets, right, that are really hard to troubleshoot, like server 3 and data center rack 5 is sometimes slow to this data center rack, right? And like a lot of times those issues were tiny misconfigurations because humans make mistakes, like an MTU misconfiguration on one interface in a data center, right? Could make it slow sometimes. Or a OSPF link that's flapping. So it's up sometimes. So depending on how the ECMP happens, it's like down sometimes. But this is where like AI and automation, I think, could really speed up, even if they're not necessarily fixing it right away. The other cool thing is like one of the, I generated a playbook from scratch, so that's scary. I think it's probably more realistic right now is if you already had automation in your infrastructure, like config management, you could say, hey, this server is acting weird. I'm going to auto trigger a sync to source of truth immediately rather than wait till the next scheduled time. And that's probably less risky because that automation is already approved to run, and it was going to run anyway in 30 minutes or an hour or tomorrow, right? So we could use EDA to be like, hey, there's an anomaly. There's a difference in configuration here. I saved a timestamp of it to look at later, but let's revert it to source of truth. And then we could run a playbook that says like, hey, everything looks online. All loopbacks can reach each other. Routes look correct. What happened? And what happened was Sean went into the network closet and plugged something in, and like some human probably did it, right? Like, but hopefully, I'm just looking at. So Dexter's asking, what about the inventory for AP? Can account for the broken device not being in an existing inventory? Yeah. So that's one I played with. Is like the AI generated playbooks. What I try to do is I override the host directive to be all, no matter what, and then try to add limits in for what inventory it's running in. So that's one trick I've done. And then you're like, how do you get the inventory in there if it doesn't already exist? Well, that's a little bit harder, but you can also use config as code for AAP. So you could auto add a inventory, but you still need a SSH key or a username and password. So the harder part's not maybe the inventory, but how do I access this piece of equipment? But I imagine if you're already using a monitoring tool like Splunk, you would have that somewhere, right? Actually, I forgot at the beginning is a big announcement at Cisco Live was a Splunk integration with EDA. And Cisco owns Splunk, right? So that should be one of the biggest things. I don't even know if I had Splunk on that diagram of stuff, but Splunk is probably one of the most asked about EDA sources that we talk about. And it's really positioning itself as like an observability and a way to kick off AI workflows. And in fact, the smarter your observability platform, the less false positives you're going to get, right? Because it's going to notice anomaly and do some logic before it even fires a playbook off.
Yeah, and there's the AI capabilities in Splunk too. That's right. That's kind of trying to figure out things. So you have all these AIs and agents, and then Matt, Tenopolis is there. Matt, yes, Red Hat plus Cisco suite. Please, yes, let's do more stuff with Red Hat back again, especially now that they have Terraform and Hashi also. And then Casey, he likes the idea of creating remediation artifacts, including a report with the summary of logs, list of recent ServiceNow tickets, list of recent Git commits. Yeah,
it becomes so easy with automation because I would have honestly killed. I'm sure there's Cisco tech engineers that would kill for that today because it's like getting information to the actual person that can help troubleshoot it is just a very slow process that takes phone calls and tons of log messages. I mean, I remember even back in like the 2010s building automation just to unpack tarballs of information and try to map it back. But it
was all manual, right? Like you would have to, yeah.
In fact, I don't know if Cisco's gotten a lot because it's been a while since I worked for Cisco. But I remember back in the day on older devices, certain troubleshooting commands could make it worse. Like you type show tech and it just goes crazy and it would output everything. And you're like, no, I didn't. And then you just lose access to the box. And then you're just sitting there with everyone staring at you. And you're like, you were supposed to be the expert. What did you just do to our enterprise network? And you're like, oh no.
Yeah, because I mean the CPU was probably pegged at 100%, and you do a show tech, and that's just gonna kill it completely.
I've definitely been in that situation where like I ran a command or like clear IPBGP summary star asterisk or something, like not clear IPBGP star, and then you bring down an entire data center, and then you're just sitting there like, what did I do?
Oh yeah, you cleared the BGP process like millions of routes. Cisco MDT, we can configure the device to send data to Kafka. A rulebook can flag a message on the topic, but then if AAP doesn't already know about the device, then it could be an issue. So loading up, the inventory, Sean, you said you cannot load it up easily, or can you point to a source of truth? You could point to like a netbox, right?
Yeah, so you can load from Netbox. You can load from. We're starting to add all your management software sources of truth. So you could use what's the newest name for the Catalyst management? Because it was Cisco
Catalyst Center.
Yeah, Catalyst Center.
Catalyst Center.
I think they're working on that now. So you can use source of truth. So if you have an existing Cisco management tool for like Catalyst or Nexus or ACI, we can like pull infrastructure from it. We can pull from third party like Netbox. We can pull from like Nautobot. We can pull from pretty much anything, even like SolarWinds and things. There's plugins for this particular like sources of truth. We can pull from a CSV file. There's technically even an import. You would have to build a workflow, Dexter, to like pull. You're like, hey, if not exist, it'd be an interesting problem. It wouldn't be impossible, but like you could have it run. If the playbook has like 0 change tasks or something, then you could be like, okay, it obviously hasn't run. So then pull source of truth and then rerun. Like you could build a workflow to kind of build some logic there. Consultants would be like, why isn't AEP already know about it? Like they'd probably push back a little bit. They'd be like, why isn't it in the source of truth? But I think it's a good question because they're like some of our consultants, I'm sure some Cisco consultants too, are like thinking of best practices where in reality, it's not up to Dexter where he can put source of truth sometimes. He probably has 5 other teams he has to work with. It's very rare I see a customer with only one source of truth. Like they're like, we use ServiceNow for tickets, but the CMDB is not up to date. So we use NetBox over here, but that team, they use this Google sheet that this guy created. So then you have a ton of different source of truths, which is super fun for automators. There's like entire speeches where people get platformed up to talk about SSOT, single source of truth, and you're like, I feel like Network to Code talks about that, a single source of truth, and like how if you have more than one, there's no source of truth, which is true.
Exactly.
But like, in reality, it's just tough because it's not up to like just one guy. There's and some people are religious about where they put information. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool. So I feel like the next step for this too is multi AI. Like this is something I actually talked to some people at AutoCon about, which is you can, since it's just an API request to ask one AI endpoint, why not ask them all? Like that's one demo I want to build next is I want to ask like 10 different AI endpoints the same question and then see what they put. And you could add all of them to a ticket. You'd be like, well, Claude thinks this with the Sonnet model. And then what's cool about that is like it sounds cool, but it's kind of like getting the best Google result when you search for like the same question. And if the answers are similar, you're like, I'm on to something. But it's also, I think, as organizations become more mature with their AI implementations, they probably want some sort of validation of AI and how it's working for them. So they probably need a separate pipeline where you're testing like normal tickets that you guys get, because you don't want to like be like AI always knows the answer, and then you switch models, and all of a sudden like your entire infrastructure was reliant on this AI model. Yeah, and then it stops working, and then everything's broken, and you're like, oh, what's going on? So there's got to be some way to test AI models specifically. Oh, Casey's talking about token costs. So this is one with if you're running on premises, you don't have to worry about tokens. Just saying, there's still tokens in the sense of like question to answer and the amount of horsepower you're using, but you're not paying like an hourly cost.
Even paying for the power and data center and
CPU.
Cooling,
but that is a problem. Someone earlier was mentioning N8N, which is a web-based workflow that requires not just tokens for talking to endpoints because it's cloud-based, but basically equivalent of tokens to run workflows. It's a different model. I see it more for RPA-based automation because of some of those limitations. Because if you were running that to do like 400 configurations of network devices locally, like I can't imagine. Yeah, on-prem is not free, but I do see this like push to cloud, push to on-premises, like every 3 years. I swear it's happened like 10 times in my short career. I feel like where everything's moving to the cloud and then everything's moving on premise. So it just depends on the.
Well, I think AI now that people are moving it back on, but yeah, nothing is free. API call pricing, and then Jeremy, thanks for watching this. There was some interesting analysis on how the major AIs compared to each other when they asked the same question. Yeah,
and I don't think a lot of them are being used for troubleshooting AI or not AI, troubleshooting in IT infrastructure. This is a cool thing where I think a lot of them are pretty good at it, like off the shelf. So one thing, like the Red Hat AI business unit, and granted, I'm on the Ansible side, so I'm not. I learn from them, But on our side, what's really cool is you can actually train these models on your own data and then spin out a new model. So as a company becomes more mature, if you didn't want to share data with like OpenAI or something where it's only cloud-based, you could train it on data you have from support tickets or your infrastructure and your sources of truth. So it has context, not just like 20 logs like I showed today. And then just like when you build a container, you have a base container, and then you say, I want all these things installed on the base container, and then it spins out a new container, and then you use a registry to share that container. The same thing works for the models now, and they can be distributed through a container registry, which is really cool. So we have base models for Minstrel, Llama, and Granite. So IBM open source the Granite models. So those are the base models. Then we can spin out. You basically hand it a bunch of data in a Git repo. You train it on that data. You put a bunch of seed questions, and it can actually synthesize like hundreds, if not thousands, of questions based on the data and your seed questions. Then you spin out a new model. You have a new model, and then you serve that model. So they've been doing demos of that where they're like, hey, the model has really incorrect answers. It doesn't know who Adrian is. And then we train it on Adrian's bio, and then it starts asking questions about it. And it's really cool. And if you extrapolate that to like an organization, it becomes really easy to be like, okay, now it's talking our language for our particular data center, our infrastructure, our stuff. So it's kind of like if anyone's played with ChatGPT versus Claude Code and Cursor, like Cursor and Claude Code have context around your entire code base or your entire project you're working on, where ChatGPT just knows the history of what you like. It's more of a chat interface. So it's more of the implementation of how those AI models work. Yeah, and some of these models, I think for training models, you need a lot of horsepower. For inference, simple question and answer, I am only paying less than $1 an hour to run that demo I just did. Like it is a G6. It's like the most inexpensive AWS G6 instance I could find. And you saw it answered in real time. From like starting that demo to ending it is less than a minute. And I think people overestimate the cost of on-premises for inference. Like it's very low.
It is, and I mean, same thing. I'm running it not even like you're running on AWS. I'm running with Llama. I have Llama 3, for example, right? So for just demo purposes or testing things out, you can run it locally on your Mac or PC or whatever it is, right? Just get a Llama, get a basic model in there with 7 billion parameters. Even that 7 billion parameters, you can run it easily on a PC, Mac, right? So, and that going back to the N8N comment that Jock was doing, he was probably a bit tongue in cheek because I'm building N8N. I have a demo for GSX, and you can run N8N not only in the cloud, by the way, Sean. You can run it also locally. So I'm running everything locally. I have my N8N Docker containers. I have my Llama running locally on my Mac. Yeah. So like the whole thing, and I'm building a workflow within N8N that takes logs, syslogs.
Yeah,
right?
perfect.
And then ingest it, and then you can interact with a chatbot. It's like, hey, so what happened on Friday, March 16th at this time on that device? So that chatbot will go and will look at all the syslogs and will tell you, yeah.
Made him laugh.
So Abhishek is asking, is there any MCP involved in this? Not yet.
This right now is not yet. So we were talking to MCP a little bit earlier. We hopefully before end of year we'll have MCP integration in our chat interface. Actually, I don't have it. I don't have the full installation, but I have our internal thing I can show for a second. So there's where's my window? One sec. I have Chrome tab. Okay, this is smarter. Okay, no, that one here. So this a little bit dumbed down. So on the left side, this is where you would see AAP. This is just like our internal testing stuff. But this will actually be in the interface. I have this. I just don't have one installed right now. But anyways, in here, this is Lightspeed Assistant. I'm gonna be like, hey, what is a job template? How does that relate to an Ansible playbook or something? And this, It looks slower than ChatGPT just because we don't have buffering on. Like it's just the same speed, because you know how ChatGPT or something just like fills it out while it's typing. You can, that's like a knob in there. But this is trained on our documentation and our knowledge base and our information to help people use the product faster. But what's cool is in the future, this has an API. So in the workflow I just showed, we could use Intelligent Assistant within the workflow, and then this can run completely on premises as long as you have a GPU somewhere to run it, because you wouldn't want to do CPU only. Now, what's cool about this is this will have MCP hopefully before end of year. So then I could do more interesting questions like build me a job template with this information or whatever, and like give it some stuff. So it'll actually configure it for you, because then it has context of the API for AI to actually interact with it. But it'll also be able to do really interesting things like, hey, what playbooks have failed the most? Of those playbooks, what host failed the most? Which ones are having issues? Generate me a playbook to figure out what the issue is. And we actually demoed that at Ansiblefest, where we showed what does this look like? And we actually discovered that like, hey, this machine is out of storage. So when it runs playbooks, it would fail some of the time because there wasn't enough swap storage to even have the Python code execute on that end node. And it's really easy to do that. Like a human could figure that out. AI is just assisting in speeding up that reduction in like figuring out what's going on. So there's a massive amount of use cases in there. The next question would be like, well, what about interacting with end systems? So I imagine what will happen is more and more partners will have MCP servers that we can interact with directly. So even within our workflow, like one of our internal hackathons, we already have two, right? We have Code Assistant and Intelligent Assistant. So we can actually hook those up together. We have this working where if you ask the chat assistant to build me a playbook, instead of just using the onboard LLM, it goes, hey, you Code Assistant, you generate the playbooks for me. So I imagine this will be the evolution, as the main MCP server for us will also be the way we interact with other MCP servers and different tool chains. So starting with Red Hat products, just because we're Red Hat. But in this case, that's where I see like if Cisco releases an MCP server for something, instead of us having to run a model that you guys trained, we could just talk directly to that model and say, hey, what's going on, network? We're seeing an anomaly on this OpenShift cluster. And you're like, we're seeing an anomaly too. You can see these AI endpoints, and then they help come to like a resolution together. So yeah, so that's one piece of it, is we have a model trained on our specific documentation and knowledge base, but MCP goes farther where it gets real-time information. I actually think the answer is going to be kind of a mix of it, right? Like you can train models all day, but like you saw, it's pretty good at troubleshooting with just a few lines of logs. So MCP is just doing that in a more AI native way. So as that technology evolves, I think it'll become really easy for models to have more context, because they don't need 5 years of training to know how to do something. They just need like the log message and the current status of the ports and what's going on.
Because they're already been trained. Yeah, it's just
they've already
that to your
Exactly.
specific information, your specific syslogs and data.
It's not
And
good at
then-
novel things, but troubleshooting BGP and OSPF and Nginx outages, like these are things we've solved. It just takes time, right? Because you're looking at hundreds of servers and network connection. Like it's a perfect use case for AI, because it just takes time for a human to troubleshoot it. I mean, even the
but it's
CCIE
similar
lab, right?
steps every single time, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar steps, and you have a certain number of steps to get it done, and you just can run it much faster. And then you were talking about the VS Code extension, Sean. Can you show that? Do you have it installed in your?
I don't know if I have it turned on, but let me see. Let me see if I have it on right now. I feel like I have
I
to
was
read.
curious to see. So you have this. Well, it was like the intelligent assistant that's going to be built into AAP itself, an Ansible automation platform, and you can interact with it. And then there was also the VS Code extension. That is that like as you build your playbook, is gonna kind of populate the fields automatically for you. Is that it, like a code completion type of tool?
I'm trying to see if I have it turned on. One sec. Yeah, but it's just like code completion. It'll explain what's happening in a playbook, and it will generate playbooks. Oh, it says I'm not logged in. Let me see if it's easy. Let's see if this will work. Open. Because I just use the cloud service. I don't have it running. Oh, did that work? 1 second. See if this will actually work for a demo. Oh, it did work. All right. So let me share my screen. This will be the last, because we just have to the hour, right?
We have 5 minutes. Yeah.
I'm not going to do this justice, but where did VS Code go? Oh, wait. So you could say like, hey, configure VLANs 10 and VLAN 20 on a Cisco IOS device. We'll see how it does. So what it's doing is it's just building, it's using AI directly inside your VS Code environment. So there's a bunch of different tools in here, like creating all these different things. So some of these require watsonx subscription, and some of them don't. So like all these things don't. But if I want to generate an entire playbook, right, I could say like, I want a playbook to install Nginx on RHEL 9 or something. Then I can click analyze, and this should, knock on wood, because this is live, is it'll say like, hey, I just install Nginx, whatever. So it's actually going to build me that, and then I can open the editor, and it puts it directly in VS Code. You'll notice it does little things like fully qualified collection name and so on. What's more interesting, or I like more, I guess, it's like bias. Let me find if I have a playbook. What repo am I in? I'm going to go into something big. So I go in here, and then I say, hey, I guess it's still loading. It's linting. It's linting this huge file. So lint doesn't require, it's not AI, but the VS Code actually has Ansible lint in there. This playbook might be, why won't it let me do that one? It might be because I have to lint it first. But you can generate a playbook, generate a role. I probably need a simpler playbook where I have to load this in. But I can actually have it explain what an existing playbook does. So this one's like, you go the other direction, and what it'll do is it'll actually generate an explanation for that playbook. And it should generate a human readable information on the right. Yeah, it says, hey.
And this is with watsonx, I would
Yes.
imagine, in the back. Yeah.
So the real kind of takeaway is that it allows you to understand Ansible, build Ansible, and just reduce friction for building it. watsonx can actually be deployed on premises. It requires OpenShift. And then, but it comes with like a SaaS, like you can just talk to like a console service. And that's what I just did, is I just re-authenticated real quick. Sometimes I am testing different endpoints for engineering testing it. So that's why I was like, oh, maybe this will work. Because sometimes I configure like their beta, whatever, to play with what they're messing with. Some of those playbook generation for networking is still probably not where it needs to be. For like Linux and RHEL, it's really good because it has a lot more data to train on. That's something I want them to look at, like some of the Cisco validated designs and how they're creating playbooks, because then we're creating them the way Cisco TAC wants to support them, right? And that's where I think I want to see that technology evolve to next, because I don't even necessarily need to generate the playbooks. It just needs to know, like, this is the playbook if you want to deploy BGP on this type of device and this type of situation, right? Like it's not inventing it from scratch.
Yeah, and also, like you said, right, Cisco is putting out this networking focused model out there. I know it's they've opened up, I know, like CCIEs, I think, get it. I got an invitation, hey, if you want to check this out. So I'm looking forward to getting access to it too.
Yeah.
But at some point they'll open it to everyone, right? So at that point, it's gonna be much easier for partners like Red Hat, right, to just take that and improve Watson and just build on top of the model.
Yeah.
For Gus 3, yeah, that's a good point, Dexter. Right, just creating documentation. You have a playbook. It's like, hey, can you document this playbook for me?
Yeah, which would that's the one I need to do.
Nobody likes to do documentation anyway, so that's actually a really good use case.
Like, how do I use this repo you gave me? It doesn't make any sense. Like reverse engineer their entire code base to understand what the hell they were doing. Anyways,
Good stuff. Yeah. So Sean, thank you so much, buddy. This has been so then we'll look on to talk about MCP a bit later, right? Because
yes.
I think once we start having agents, like you've said, right, and once they start taking advantage of all these large language models, and once we optimize an agent for a specific task, and you have, multiple agents exposing different features, and they'll be able to be rated on how trustworthy they are, right? And we'll have that built into MCP. So it's a really interesting world and times we're living right now. So I'm gonna be interested to see, if we can bring that back once you guys go GA. I'd love to have a look at the MCP capabilities with AAP. And also, like we've said, all right, if you want to come back on Terraform versus Ansible, I want to have kind of that conversation too at some point, because now the stars have aligned, right? It went through the acquisition, so Hash is now part of IBM. Also, you folks are all there under the same umbrella, working together, just probably like different BUs. But I'm curious to see those like Vault integration, right, with Ansible, Vault with Terraform, how you authenticate smoothly, how you create users to connect to devices, kind of like in a safe, secure way.
We'll be doing a lot of that at reInvent.
Yeah.
If anyone is at reInvent for some reason, I know it's more Cisco Live folks here, but if you're at reInvent, stop by the Red Hat. Yeah.
I'm sure cool. When is that? Is that the December you said?
Yeah, December. It should be the first week in December. Cisco has a booth there, yeah. In Vegas. It's always Vegas. I never get to go anywhere except Vegas.
All right. Well, folks, yeah, so you get to see that more Vault with Ansible at reInvent. And then Sean, here too, hopefully we'll get you back on the stream, bud.
Yeah, good to see you.
It is possible to create a wrap around public AI models, which can be focused on creating Ansible playbooks, but the Ansible Lightspeed is directly only built and more accurate, trustworthy. Thanks. Yeah, exactly, Abhishek, you got it. All right, so thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, folks. Sean, thank you so much for doing the demo. The intelligent, always a pleasure. Intelligent agent, AIOps, which might get renamed something else. We'll see.
I don't know, man. I'm not in charge of naming. Don't blame me if something sucks.
But VS Code, right? ID add-on, basically, you quickly showed us. Cool. Yeah, looking forward to see what Red Hat and Ansible is coming up with next. Any planned interoperability with agency? That's a good question.
Do you know that?
Yeah. So agency is a new Cisco. It's basically Internet of Agents framework from Cisco. They've just give it, actually yesterday it was announced, to the Linux Foundation.
Oh, so you just messed with us. I was like, I don't even get 48 hours to learn about the newest stuff.
No, it's been out there for a bit. But it's basically a whole framework on building agents, right? On how to do it. I have an SDK showing you all the protocols that are involved with it, right? A2A, AGP, Slim are basically built in within the framework, so it's much easier for you to build the agents. But yeah, like I've said, it's just big announcement yesterday. It's part of the Linux Foundation now, has been pretty much open sourced and made available through the Linux Foundation to everyone. Cisco, I believe, is a founding member of that, of course, Dell, Google, Oracle, and Red Hat. So you didn't even know, Sean, but you folks are like founding members of agency.
I'm sure our AIBU's deeply embedded in it. I'll have to read up, see what we're announcing.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you guys next week with Tony Dubiel. He's coming also from Ansible. We're going to do some cool things, best practices. Tony also has some really cool demos, so I'm looking forward to that. Sean, thanks again. Thanks, everyone, folks, for watching. See you on the next one. Take care, everyone.